That is the correct conclusion.
Okay, so we'll continue to read. Okay, continue.
But the how bhakti said to be without cause, ahitukum, in this verse, because the Lord mercy is included in the mercy of the devotee, and because that mercy is included in association with devotees, and because devotee association is an anga of bhakti. Is said to be without cause, since an anga of bhakti causes bhakti. Moreover, the cause of devotee's mercy is but the bhakti present in the heart of the devotee, because without the bhakti in his heart, there is no possibility of the mercy arising. In all ways of, therefore, bhakti is the cause of bhakti. Therefore, bhakti is said to be without cause. From the point of view of bhakti, the devotee bhakti, the Lord, and his mercy are not separate items. Even those bhakti appears by the bhakti, thus being self-maintaining. Manifesting. It does not negate the fact that bhakti self-maintaining nature come from the Lord. Manifesting nature come from the Lord. This bhakti cannot be prevented by anything. Aparatitha. This is mentioned in the following verse.
Madguna Shruti Matrena Mayi Sarva Guhashe Manopatir Avichinna Yatha Ganga Samrudao.
Just as the water of Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by the material condition, flows toward the Supreme Lord.
Okay. So here basically bhakti is said to be ahituki, without any cause, because the cause of bhakti is association of devotees. So that is the only cause. Actually, the Lord does not distribute His mercy directly. The Lord distributes His mercy through the agency of the devotees. And so therefore, the cause of bhakti is association of devotees, but association of devotees, sadhu sangha, is an anga of bhakti. So therefore, the cause of bhakti is bhakti itself. There is no other cause of bhakti besides bhakti. So from that viewpoint, bhakti is said to be ahituki, means there is no other cause of bhakti besides bhakti itself. So that's another aspect of the understanding of bhakti's ahituki's nature. So they're both the aspects. One aspect is that ahituki means no other motive. There is no other cause to perform bhakti besides the desire to please Guru and Krishna. There is no other cause or no other motive. So that's one understanding of ahituki. And the other understanding is that there is no other cause of bhakti besides bhakti itself. So,
in the previous slide, it is mentioned that because Lord is dependent on the devotee, Lord's mercy flows through the mercy of the devotee. This is what you mentioned.
yes.
In this, however, if one sees that the cause of bhakti is the mercy of the devotee, it is not so incorrect. Those Bhaktas do not make distinction. But really, this is like little confusing statement.
What's confusing?
It's like bhakti is mercy of the devotee, and
Okay, fine. So basically, what the devotee distributes is definitely the Lord's mercy. He is the agent for distribution of the Lord's mercy. So just like you have some product which is manufactured by a factory, and then the factory may not directly sell, correct? There are the retail shops or distributors, they distribute, correct? So similarly, the Lord is the source of all mercy, but He does not distribute directly. He has His agents to distribute. So who are the agents for the distribution? Devotees. So now maybe your question is why the Lord does not distribute Himself. Is that your question?
no. But generally we say devotees, that we appreciate devotees also, in that by your mercy only
Mhm.
we got bhakti.
Mhm.
In that way, it's just a secondary understanding or it's a primary one. That's like
Okay, so there is a shop selling cloth. So whose cloth is it? The manufacturer, correct. There is a manufacturer who has manufactured the cloth. So it is his cloth. Now the shop is selling it. So he is what?
the
He is the medium. So the same principle. So it is whose mercy? Krishna's mercy. What is the devotee doing? He is distributing. That's all.
So then our appreciation with this statement is correct or it's
Which statement?
like devotee's mercy only we are getting bhakti. That
Okay. So when Dhruva Maharaj, he performed his, he went to the forest, and then in the forest he met Narad Muni. Then Narad Muni gave him some instructions, correct? What instructions he gave him? That was a test, not instruction. Go back home was not an instruction. He was only testing him.
to make the deity of the Lord, to make the deity of the Lord and chant.
Okay, so chant Om Namo Bhagavad Vasudevaya, make the deity made of clay and then worship and perform austerities, all that. So he did that. As a result of following those instructions of Narad Muni, after 6 months what happened? Yes, he had darshan of the Lord. Now before he had darshan of the Lord, so after Narad Muni's encounter with Dhruva, Narad went to Vaikuntha and he told the Lord, see, there is this small boy performing these very severe austerities in Madhuban to achieve you. So please go and give your mercy to this boy. So the Lord asked, okay, but have you given your mercy? So Narad Muni said, yes, I have given him instructions. Then the Lord said, okay, then I will go. You got the answer? That is how it works. So therefore, here he is writing, thus, because the Lord is dependent on the devotee, the Lord's mercy follows after the mercy of the devotee. That is the correct conclusion. Lord is dependent on the devotee. Why? The Lord cannot distribute on his own.
So the Lord is trying to say at every moment that he is there as Paramatma, but he is not very successful in trying to convince that Jivatma.
Oh,
So that the
devotee is more successful.
devotee like Prabhupada and other pure devotees. So that's why Lord is very indebted to the devotee.
So that means the devotee is more powerful than the Lord. That's what you're saying.
In one sense, he is ever distributing the mercy of the Lord. Krishna wanted to do that job, but he is unable to do it.
So then what you're trying to say is Lord is incompetent. Correct? That's what you're saying. Lord, since innumerable lifetimes he is with the Jiva, Jiva is not turning towards him. The Lord has got frustrated. He is not able to do anything. So he told the devotee, please you do it, I am unable to. That's what you're saying, correct?
Not exactly.
Not exactly. And what is exactly?
That's what this whole discussion is all about.
No, that's another thing. What you just said.
Exactly.
Huh?
shloka in Bhagavatam where it is said like Lord does not know anyone other than devotees.
Okay.
So it just Lord always acts for the devotees. Like there is no other activity he does other than just pleasing devotees.
Okay, that's correct. Okay, so fine. So even though I didn't want to get into the details, but you're forcing me to get into some details here. So before that, he writes, nor can it be even said that the mercy of the Lord is the cause of pure bhakti, for it is a non-final cause, making one search out a further cause. One cannot say that the Lord's mercy is absolute without further cause, for then it would mean that the Lord is unjust and prejudiced in choosing to give mercy without reason to certain individuals and not to others. So definitely, without any doubt, the Lord is fully capable of distributing bhakti to everyone. Okay? So now, in reality, what do we find? Does everyone get bhakti? No. Is the Lord capable of giving bhakti to everyone? Yes. But yet we find some get bhakti, some don't get bhakti. Then somebody may say, see, the Lord is fully competent, correct? He is fully competent to give bhakti to everyone. Yet he is not giving to everyone. That means what? He is partial. He is capable of giving to everyone, but he is not giving everyone. So suppose there are unlimited gulab jamuns and somebody is serving. So unlimited gulab jamuns are there. Yet he gives only to some and does not give to others. So what will you call the person? Partial. Correct? He is capable, he is unlimited, he is capable of giving everyone, yet he is not giving. Why? He is partial. So similarly, the Lord is capable of giving everyone, but yet he is not giving. So then what will people say? Lord is partial. So therefore, the Lord says, I am not going to do this business. On the other hand, as far as the Uttam Bhaktas are concerned, they see everyone as devotee. They see everyone as better devotees than themselves. So, to whom they'll give bhakti. So, therefore, the Madhyam Bhaktas, then the Madhyam Bhaktas, they make distinction. Prema, Maitri, Kripa, Upeksha. And as far as these preacher devotees are concerned, they have limitations. Correct? They have limitations. So, just like somebody is preaching here in Juhu. Of course, whole of Juhu itself is a very big area, correct? So, if a preacher at Juhu says, you see, I cannot preach in Gujarat. Is it a justifiable statement or not? If a preacher devotee says, see, I am preaching here in Juhu, I have got enough preaching programs, I cannot preach in Gujarat. If he says that, is he justified in saying it or not? Yes. Why? Yes, he is limited. So devotee has limitations. So if a devotee says, look, I can preach to these people, I cannot preach to these people. Justified. So therefore, the Lord is left to the devotees. So when the devotees discriminate and they preach to certain people, they don't preach to certain people, they preach to the innocent, They don't preach to the envious. When the preacher devotee makes these distinctions, it is justified. Nobody can accuse the preacher devotee for being partial because it is justified. So therefore, the Lord has left it to the preacher devotees. Okay, you decide. Where you want to distribute my mercy, you decide. You have the distribution rights. You decide. Where you want to distribute, you decide. So it is Krishna's mercy only, but he has left the choice to the devotee where he wants to distribute. And of course, the devotees are dear to Krishna, especially the preacher devotees, they are dear to Krishna. So Krishna also wants to glorify them. So he is given that power of attorney to these devotees. You decide where. Srila Prabhupada, in the entire globe, why he decided to go to New York?
He decided.
Any good reason?
Most powerful country.
Huh?
Most powerful country at that time. So if that country accepts, then every.
Okay, that's one reason. Agree. That's one reason. But then still, why only New York? Okay, you're saying the entire country, correct? The USA, entire country was a powerful nation. Then why did he choose only New York? He could have gone to California, he could have gone to Los Angeles, he could have gone to so many other places in the USA. Why did he go to only to New York?
He got ticket.
He got some acquaintance there.
He got some acquaintance.
That is, this is where he want to go.
It was most degraded. Most fallen, so fallen gets.
Other places they were not followed. The point is, it was his choice. Why did Narad Muni decide to go to Mrigari? Maybe Akshay Prabhu will say he was most fallen. There's no why there. He thought, okay, he's a good candidate. Finished. That's it. There is no why. So the devotee decides and he distributes. That's it. And he cannot be questioned because, I have my limitations. I can go here, I can go here. I'll go a few places. So I can't be everywhere. So I decide where to go. And then the Lord's mercy follows after the mercy of God. Okay, is the point clear? But in any case, the cause of bhakti is basically what? The association of devotees. The cause of bhakti, to be more precise, he says the cause of bhakti is the bhakti within the heart of the devotee. That is the cause of bhakti. That is what gets transferred. The bhakti in the heart of the devotee influences the other person. And that's how he also gets bhakti. So therefore the cause of bhakti is bhakti. That is the ahituki nature of bhakti.
So Prabhuji, when a devotee wants to give mercy, but it also depends on the path of the person, because pure devotee may want to give the mercy to the entire world.
Correct.
But not everyone is picking up.
Yes, that's why he discriminates.
So it depends on the receptivity of the receiver also.
Correct.
And that receptivity is decided by his Sukruti.
Okay, agreed. So
The mercy of the devotee may not be the cause of bhakti alone. It depends on the Sukruti of the other person. Which may be like, he may not have done bhakti Sukruti also. He may be just a pious person and he may have helped in some way a devotee. which may have developed his Sukruti, which turned into Bhakti Unmukha. But unless he has that Sukruti, the devotee's mercy may not act.
So what is the cause of bhakti?
Both Sukruti plus mercy. Receptivity, if it is not there,
So if you say Sukruti is the cause of bhakti, then how Mrigari got? What was his Sukruti?
so he received the instruction of Narad Muni. He put faith in the words of Narad Muni and he did break his bow and
Okay. So what is the cause of bhakti?
mercy plus Sukruti.
Who's Sukruti?
The receiver.
No. If you take the case of Mrigari, what was his Sukruti?
We don't know what was his Sukruti, but he was having
Okay, you don't know. So then the matter
He was
closes.
having the faith that okay, I should obey the
So that means the cause of his bhakti is what?
Mercy of
Mercy of devotion.
faith.
So he followed the instructions of Narad Muni. So whose instructions?
Devotees.
Whose instructions? Devotees' instructions. So those instructions are the devotees' mercy.
so like Prabhupada was in Australia, he saw severe opposition. He was driving back and he said these people will not understand, just distribute prasad and do kirtan. So these people are also getting a chance to receive mercy of Prabhupada, but they are not receiving, they are throwing stuffs on Prabhupada. So then they are not receiving the mercy.
Okay, they've already received it.
Received, but they have not tangibly accepted the mercy.
Whether they accept or not, the fact is that they have received. By getting the association, they have received. When that will mature, that's another point. But just by contact with a devotee and by somehow following the instructions of the devotee or somehow accepting what the devotee gives, his Sukriti begins. Now, when that matures, that is another point. But the beginning point of for a person to take up to devotional service, even if it is Agyat Sukruti, is a devotee's mercy. That is always the initial touch has to be the association of a devotee. There is no other cause. So just like people are, there is Jagannath Rath Yatra, there are hundreds of people walking on the road. Correct? Maybe they never wanted to have darshan of the Lord. They never wanted to hear the holy name. But just because a devotee has agreed to organize the Rath Yatra, how many people get the right? Now, amongst those hundreds of people, some of them may be the most degraded, sinful people without any Sukriti whatsoever. But yet, what is happening? The bhakti begins. Even though they may have no Sukriti at all. Therefore, bhakti does not depend on any other factor. And anyways, we cannot get into details. If more details you want, then with more Shastric references and quotes, then you can go to the Madhuri Kadana, then you will get more references.
So we can say that beginning of bhakti is is depending on bhakti. It does not depend on the Sukruti. But progressing bhakti may require the person putting faith and following.
Yes, that is correct. Then later on, when he receives the bhakti, that's what we say. One receives the Bhakti Lata Beach, then what one has to do? Then one has to water it. That who has to do?
Individual.
Yes, that the candidate has to do. That effort has to. But the beginning of bhakti, the cause of bhakti is only one, and that is the association of bhakti. cause, to begin bhakti, there is no other cause. There is no place. That's what he says here. Here he says this. Such things as charity, vows, austerity, sacrifices, selfless performance of duties are to some degree cause of bhakti. Maybe a little favorable, and that too, he says, in sattvagun, bhakti in sattvagun, practiced as an anga of jnana, but they are not causes of pure bhakti. So somebody who is on the path of jnana, then he may take help of these things by which he gets some bhakti in order to get perfection on the path of jnana. But as far as pure bhakti is concerned, there is no other cause except the association of devotees. The association of a pure devotee and the bhakti in his heart is the cause of bhakti. There is no other cause.
What about prove Gyanvan Mam Prabhaktan se?
That applies to the jnana. But then that's what? Whether it is a jnani, yogi, whoever, how we will get bhakti? Essentially by the association of devotees. Only by the association of devotees anybody can get bhakti. Without association, nobody gets bhakti. Is there anyone here who got bhakti by any other means other than association? Anybody came directly in a Vaikuntha Viman or something? No. Ah, yes? Oh, I thought you came like that.
The containers of devotional service basically is practiced by intelligent class of people who actually very much favorably accept the Krishna consciousness. Even we see Prabhupada's time, there were good people, intelligent people, etc., who came and who accepted it. So there is a class of people who would accept devotional service, and there is a class who will reject it. But favorable to the intelligent class of people. Even we find many engineers which are there in the movement, doctors, etc.
So during Prabhupada's times, how many engineers and doctors were there?
No, but they were very favorable. They were a good class of people.
What's your definition of a good class?
Basically, people.
The hippies were really good class, right? That was the majority that time.
Correct.
Correct. So that's a good class.
But we see later on all many intelligent people they came and
Yeah, so whoever takes up bhakti is definitely intelligent. But what's your perception of an intelligent class?
it could be people who can understand the philosophy or who can show some interest or value to.
Yeah, so that can be anyone, right?
Yeah, that could be, but specifically to the class of people who has some faith, inclination, or who can read Shastras or who can understand it well.
So what was the apparent intelligence of the South Indian Brahmin at Srirangam?
He could not, he was just seeing the photo of the Lord and
So what will you call him? You call him intelligent or not?
intelligent, but in the sense he can't understand the philosophy, but at least he was appreciating the photo of the Lord.
Yes, good. That's what is required, some appreciation. That's all. If one simply appreciates bhakti, the process of bhakti, somebody takes some part, then his process of devotional service begins. Doesn't require anything more than that. That's what Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically showed to the milk drinking brahmachari. So that's what Mahaprabhu told them. What was the qualification of Gajendra? What was the qualification of Jatayu? What was the qualification of the gopis? Apparently, from a material perspective, no qualification. That is bhakti. Bhakti doesn't depend on anything else, except one simply has to appreciate and accept. That's all. So, as far as this topic, we're closing it. Okay, so you want any further clarification on this topic, please read Madhuri Kadamini. Or you can ask after the class. Okay, so we're proceeding ahead now. Okay, let's read this quote of Srila Prabhupada.
Your business is to become a sincere devotee of Krishna. And without any expecting ahetuki, any success or failure, you do your duty and you will see, Krishna will see that you are successful. That is Krishna consciousness movement. Ahetuki apratihata. And you will feel satisfied. Jayatma suprasidati. As soon as you see, oh, I have done something for Krishna, devotee does not feel it, but when he sees that another man has become devotee, he becomes very satisfied. Jayatma suprasidati. So this is the process of Krishna consciousness movement.
Okay, so your business is to become sincere devotee of Krishna, that's all. And then success, failure, ahaituki, one is not so much attached to the result. One simply continues on in the practice of devotional service and then one can experience the satisfaction. Okay, so here Prabhupada is talking about bhajanti, ananya manasa, without any diversion, engagement. Okay. Okay, this is some basic points. Okay, so we can go to the next verse. 7th verse. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janyatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayatna Hetukam. By rendering devotional service under the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. I just wanted to make one point. In the previous purport towards the end, Srila Prabhupada writes that Krishna is the complete whole and everything else is his part and parcel. The relation is one of the servant and the served. It is transcendental and is completely distinct from our experience and material existence. This relation of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy. Very beautiful and deep statement. This relation of the servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy. So which is the most intimate relationship? In the spiritual sense? Yes, the Madhurya Ras. The most intimate relationship. But what is the mood of the gopis? Yes, they simply want to serve. They are the best servants. That is why they are the best devotees. Because their very existence is to give pleasure to Krishna and nothing for themselves. Whatever they do, whether they dress themselves, whether they decorate themselves, whatever they're doing, it is only meant for giving pleasure to Krishna. They are the best servants. Therefore, they are most intimate. So we have some perverted ideas of intimacy in the material world. So here we may think that a husband-wife relationship or lovers relationship is an intimate relationship. But in the material world, all relationships are for what? Sense enjoyment. So even though apparently it appears as intimate, actually it's not intimate. Because both the partners are thinking about what? My enjoyment. And therefore, that intimacy breaks. As soon as selfishness comes in a relationship, the relationship cannot be stable or it cannot exist too long. Therefore, the real form of intimacy is when one is in the mood of a servant. Then there can be actual intimacy. Because then that relationship is on a totally selfless platform. And then on that selfless platform, there can be real intimacy because one is only thinking about the pleasure of the other person. And therefore the gopis are celebrated as the topmost devotees because they are the best servants. Sri Govardhan is celebrated as Haridasa Varga, the best of servants of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, if we actually want to have intimate relationships on the spiritual platform, then those intimate relationships can only exist on a selfless platform, not on a selfish platform. This is the real understanding of intimate relationships. So even amongst devotees, if we want to have intimate relationships, the real intimacy is when the relationship is on a selfless platform. And the more we are selfish, the more we are thinking of oneself, then that relationship cannot be really intimate. Then the other person detects, oh, he is showing some intimacy only because he wants something from me. And as soon as that thought comes, where is intimacy? There cannot be intimacy. So therefore this is a beautiful statement. This relationship of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy. Most congenial, conducive form of intimacy. So, if we want relationships to be really intimate, they can exist only on this selfless platform, where one is only thinking about the benefit of the other person and not for one's own benefit. And then Prabhupada goes on to say, one can realize it as devotional service progresses. So this realization of this statement can take place to the degree the devotional service progresses. Because to the degree devotional service progresses, to that degree one becomes purified, and to that degree one can become more and more selfless. One can realize it. The topmost realization is just to realize the simple statement which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told us. What is that? Yes. Jivera Swaruphoy Krishnera Nityadas. That's all what we have to realize. Our entire struggle is simply to realize that. And the more we progress in devotional service, the more we realize I am simply a servant. And that's what Mahaprabhu has said. The topmost realization is Gopir Bhartur Padakamalyo Das 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 Avadas. That is the topmost realization. Everyone should engage himself in that transcendental loving service of the Lord, even in the present state of material existence. So even now, in the present state of material existence, one needs to act in that mood of a servant. And that will gradually give one the clue to actual life and please him to complete satisfaction. So the gopis, they are trying to give pleasure to Krishna, and as they're trying to give pleasure to Krishna, what are they experiencing? The greatest pleasure. Prabhupada in his lectures, he quotes this line which comes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Dui lage huda hudi. There is a tug of war between the gopis and Krishna. For what? To please the other person. Krishna is trying to please the gopis. Gopis are trying to please Krishna. There is a competition. Not how much I can get pleasure. There is a competition for what? How to give more pleasure to the other person. That is the competition in the spiritual world. That is spiritual competition. That is spiritual relationship. In the material world, it is exactly the opposite. In the material world, what is the competition? How much I can get for myself. If there are 10 gulab jamuns, 5 for me, 5 for the rest 100. That is material consciousness. How to grab more for myself. That may apparently give one happiness, so-called happiness, but actually that type of mentality simply leads to misery, because that type of mentality does not satisfy the soul. The soul is satisfied by this relationship. Which relationship? Servants. The more one is in the mood of a servant, because that's our constitutional position. That's constitutional position of the soul. That is the normal condition, as Prabhupada says. That's the normal condition. The normal condition is the condition of a servant. The moment one tries to be the master, what is that condition? Diseased condition. So can one be happy in a diseased condition? No, one cannot be happy in a diseased condition. So therefore Prabhupada is writing, as one progresses in bhakti, what happens? The disease reduces. The disease reduces, or it should reduce. That's what's supposed to happen. That's what's supposed to happen as a result of bhakti. Bhakti is like the medicine, correct? Bhakti is like the medicine. And as one takes the medicine, the disease should reduce. And what is the disease? The disease is the enjoying mentality. The disease is to become, as Prabhupada says very often, the Lord of all I serve. That is a disease. So as long as one is in disease condition, how can one be happy? One cannot be happy. So even though this mentality to be the Lord, the Master, the Controller may apparently on a material platform seem to give some mental titillation or satisfaction to the mind and senses, the soul will be starving. No satisfaction. But to the degree one comes to this realization that I am simply a servant, that's the normal condition. So we are trying to come to that normal condition. So to the degree one comes to that normal condition, to that degree one will experience satisfaction. To that degree one will be happy. And that's exactly what Prabhupada is writing here. As one progresses, one can realize it as devotional service progresses. Then one can experience that satisfaction. Then one can experience the results as have been described in the next verse. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janyatya Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayat Aitapam. So these results of the practice of bhakti in terms of Gyan and Vairagya can be experienced to the degree one progresses in devotional service. Okay, so okay, just read the second paragraph, then we'll discuss.
The principle of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization. The whole spiritual process leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual. And the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from material affection and become attached to spiritual activities. Becoming detached from material things does not mean become inert altogether, as men with poor fund of knowledge think. Nishkarma means not undertaking activities that will produce good or bad effects. Negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of non-essentials does not mean negation of essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. The bhakti cult is meant for realization of positive form. When the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated. Therefore, with the development of bhakti cult, with the application of positive service to the positive form, one naturally becomes detached from inferior things and he becomes attached to superior things. Similarly, the bhakti cult, being the supermost occupation of living being, leads him out of material sense enjoyment. That is a sign of pure devotee. He is not a fool, nor is he engaged in the inferior energies, nor does he have material values. This is not possible by dry reasoning. It actually happens by grace of the Almighty. In conclusion, one who is pure devotee has all other good qualities, namely knowledge, detachment, etc. But one who has only knowledge or detachment is not necessarily well acquainted with principles of bhakti cult. Bhakti is supermost occupation of the human being.
So before we discuss this part, in the previous paragraph, Prabhupada writes, those who consider devotional service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna to be something like material, emotional affairs, may argue that in the revealed scriptures, sacrifice, charity, austerity, knowledge, mystic power, similar to the process of transcendental realization are recommended. According to them, bhakti or the devotional service of the Lord is meant for those who cannot perform the high grade activities. What are the high grade activities?
Material.
All those things that Prabhupada has written there. That is reading the revealed scriptures, sacrifice, charity, austerity, knowledge. All those are considered to be high grade things. So who made such an accusation? Yes, Prakashananda Saraswati Mahaprabhu. He said, what are you doing with sentimental things here, chanting and dancing? So generally it is said that bhakti is meant for Shudras, Vaishyas, less intelligent women class, but that is not the actual fact. The bhakti cult is the topmost of all transcendental activities, and therefore it is simultaneously sublime and easy. It is sublime for the pure devotees who are serious about getting in contact with the Supreme Lord, and it is easy for the neophytes who are just on the threshold of the house of bhakti. Very interesting points. So the path of bhakti is simultaneously sublime and easy. Sublime means what?
Greatest.
Greatest. Transcendental. Sublime. Transcendental is the highest transcendental platform, correct? Yoginam api sarvesham madgatina dratmana shuddhavam vilti yomam same yuktatamo mata. So it is bhakti yogis, the topmost. So, yes, it is the topmost. It is the best of all transcendental paths. For whom? Who are serious about getting in contact with the Supreme Lord. So for them, yes, it is the topmost path to achieve the realization of the Supreme Absolute Truth. It is the best path. And for the neophytes, who may not have that realization that this is the best path to realize the absolute truth. They may not have that realization. But still, even for the neophytes, it is the easiest process. Amongst all the yoga paths, that's what we have studied in Bhagavad Gita, amongst all the yoga paths, which is easiest? Bhakti. So then somebody may say, aren't these two opposites? Just like one may say the best engineering colleges IIT. Correct? Is it correct or it's different now? So then we hear these days that to get into IIT, when does a person start his preparation? That's what I heard. From 5th class, they start preparation for IIT. So that means you want the best. What one has to do then? One has to work hard for it. But here what is said? It is the best, but at the same time easy. This is a paradox, isn't it? You want the best, you have to work hard for it. But here it is said, it is the best, but at the same time it's easy. So how do we accommodate these apparent opposites? How do we reconcile the paradox? Yes, Manas?
Prabhupada explained that it is simple for simple-minded.
Okay.
The smallness.
Okay, that's correct. That's a correct statement. But then how do we reconcile? Yes, please.
Because bhakti is transcendental. That's why it is best and at the same time it is easy.
So, aren't the paths of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga transcendental?
But still some attachment is there.
Okay. Yes, bro.
For bhakti, there is one qualification. Means any person can start. Begin.
Okay.
There is other jnana yoga. There is a need of sense control. There are
Okay, fine. So on the other paths, there are pre-qualifications. Agreed. So that's fine. So they have some. There are some pre-qualifications for those paths, and but then they, at the same time, they don't get the topmost also. Correct? They don't get the topmost also. But here, topmost is there. Now see, it's a total paradox. Now those paths, they don't get the topmost, yet they're more difficult. Here you get the topmost, yet it's more easy. Ulta ho gaya na? So for the topmost, less endeavor. For something what you achieve on lower level, more endeavor. This is funny, na? Yes, Harivan.
Because in other processes, somehow the motivation is for me. Here, bhakti it is for Guru and Krishna. So then Krishna also helps.
So what is the special characteristic on the path of bhakti?
Dependence.
Only one word.
mercy.
Yes. Mat prasadat. That is the hallmark of bhakti. Mat prasadat. Krishna's mercy. That is what changes the equation. But then, it is easy, no doubt. But one thing that is required is dependence on that mercy. That is what is required. And dependence on the mercy requires giving up dependence on one's own endeavors. That means one has to give up the false ego that I am the big doer. That is what one needs to give up. And that is what is difficult. So on the other paths, they have that ego. I'm doing so much tapasya. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. The I is still there. And that is exactly what Sanat Kumar tells Prithu Maharaj. This is 4th canto, 22nd chapter, verse number 39. Well-known famous verse which begins with Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya. Yes. Karmashayam. So this karmashayam means the asha for fruitive results. This asha for fruitive results, it creates what? Granthi. Granthi means hard knots. Very difficult to cut. So the jnanis and yogis, even though they are transcendental paths, but they create these hard knots because they are still thinking of asha. They still have asha. Bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami. They're all called kamis. They want something for themselves. Karmashayam. So therefore there are these hard knots. Very difficult. But the devotees, they give up. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama. That makes the whole difference. So apparently it appears simple, but on a subtle platform, it becomes difficult. But yes, the process by itself is easy. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada is writing, yes, it is easy for the neophytes or just on the threshold of the house of bhakti. So for the neophytes it's easy, correct? So when we come into devotional service, what we are told? Chant, dance and be happy. Chanting, dancing, feasting, that's all. So for the neophytes it's easy, and for those who are elevated, the process is sublime, transcendental, they are in contact with the Lord. For them also it is easy. It is easy plus sublime. Who lands in trouble? Those who are endeavoring to go ahead. It's a part of the process, you can't avoid it. It's a part of the process. But one has to accept it. That yes, that is the difficulty. So, initially the difficulty is not realized. The neophytes don't realize the difficulty. Because not much of surrender is expected initially, correct? So, one begins to chant 2 rounds, from 2 rounds to 4 rounds, seniors will say, oh, wonderful, wonderful. But then when one actually continues the process, then the test begins, and then one's giving up of the false ego that is tested. How much one has given up this karmashayam. If one gives up the karmashayam, then the process becomes sublime, easy. Very nice. But to the degree one holds on to the karmashayam, then hard knots. But in any case, the process of bhakti is very powerful because one is accepting the mercy of the Lord, one is surrendering to the Lord, that attracts the mercy of the Lord, that definitely makes the process easier than all the other paths. So therefore, it is only by the practice of bhakti one can develop real vairagya. Therefore, Prabhupada is explaining, the whole spiritual process leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual, and the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. So the result of the practice of bhakti is what? The first thing is one acquires perfect knowledge of everything, material and spiritual. As Krishna defines jnanam in the Bhagavad Gita. And as Prabhupada, he gives the definition. What's the definition of knowledge? Yes, matter, spirit, controller of both. So one gets perfect knowledge of both, matter and spirit. He gets both. He gets that knowledge. He understands about spirit, he understands about the Supreme Spirit. He understands all this knowledge. To the degree he gets this knowledge, So, what are the verses from Bhagavad Gita which show that a devotee can never be in ignorance? Yes, Tesham evanukampaktam aham ajnanajam tama nashyami atmabhavastam. And the previous verse also. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Okay. And Krishna Suryasam Maya Yandakar Jaha Krishna Taha Nahi Maya Radhikar. What is the analogy that Rupa Goswami gives in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu to describe the eradication of ignorance?
This lion that is chanting.
Mm-hmm.
That is chanting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the analogy he gives is in the forest, when there is a forest fire.
Snakes.
What happens to the snakes?
Snakes may burn in the fire.
Yes, the snakes get burnt in the fire, even though the four-legged animals may run away. The snakes 100% get burnt in the forest fire. So the snakes are compared to avidya, ignorance. The snakes are compared to ignorance. So by practice of devotional service, the ignorance is definitely destroyed. So when the ignorance is destroyed, that means what? One realizes one's relationship with the Supreme. And to the degree one has that realization, to that degree one can get detached from everything material. That's exactly what Prabhupada is writing here. The whole spiritual process leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual, and the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. And then he's writing these beautiful statements. Negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of the non-essentials does not mean negation of the essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. What is the meaning of all these statements? What Maya?
Some form like nirguna.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Desire, we cannot become desireless.
Mm-hmm. Yes, somebody can explain a little more. Yes, question.
This body is the cause of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So this form is cause of suffering. So in the spiritual world, if this form is cause of suffering, there is no form. Senses, similarly the senses are all sense gratification. A variety is a cause of suffering. So in spiritual world there is no variety. So all impersonal. So Prabhupada mentioning here that it's not negation of negative does not mean negation of positive. There is positive, there is variety, but that is spiritual, transcendental. There is not of this material nature.
Right. Okay, that's correct. Yes,
So Prabhupada gives a description about the Yukta Vairagya basically. So Prabhupada uses that money is good if it is used in Krishna's service. So it is not just simply negation of the positive. We can daughter it in Krishna's service.
Yes. So this is the understanding. So the understanding of Vairagya is what Srila Prabhupada is presenting here. So Vairagya does not mean simply giving up everything. Negation of the non-essentials does not mean negation of the essential. So, when we talk of Vairagya, it does not mean giving up everything. So that is Falgu Vairagya, correct? What is the definition of Falgu Vairagya? Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastunaha mumukshubhi parityago vairagyam falgu. So, the mumukshubhis or the jnanis, yogis, they cannot understand that there is hari sambandhi vastuna. They think that everything is prapanchikataya buddhya. Prapanchikataya means material consciousness. Because of material consciousness, they think, oh, this is material, everything is material. They cannot see the connection to Krishna. And so therefore they give them up, thinking them to be a cause of bondage. So that is called false renunciation, Falgu Vairagya. But on the other hand, there is Yukta Vairagya. What is the definition? अनासक्तस्य विषयान् यथा न उपयुञ्जत निर्बन्ध कृष्ण संबंधे युक्तं वैराग्यम उच्यते. So real vairagya is seeing that everything is connected to Krishna, has a connection to Krishna, and therefore one does not give up things, rather one engages everything in Krishna's service. Okay, you may have heard that pastime. Some disciple showed a photo of Mayavadi who is raising his hands and saying that I don't touch money. Professors, give all the money to me. So that is what Srila Prabhupada is indicating here. What is meant by real vairagya? So vairagya does not simply mean giving up, but rather engaging everything in the Lord's service. Therefore, with the before that, the bhakti cult is meant for realization of the positive form. Okay, so again, so it does not mean that giving up the form, as the Mayavadis say, but realization of the positive form. Therefore, with the development of the bhakti cult, with the application of positive service to the positive form, one naturally becomes detached from inferior things and it becomes attached to spirit. Naturally becomes. So, on the path of Yukta Vairagya, so we can engage everything in Krishna service, correct? Maybe we discussed this when we were discussing NOD, some of the devotees. So, I don't know whether we specifically discussed this point, but in the story of Sanatana Goswami and the touchstone. So anyway, those who were there in the NOD classes, you don't have to reply if you know what we're discussing. But let's hear from others. So, in the story of Sanatana Goswami touchstone, I think so everyone knows that story, correct? Yes. Sanatana Goswami touchstone, there was a Brahmana who wanted to get the most valuable thing. He went to Lord Shiva sends him to Sanatana Goswami says, okay, you want a valuable thing, have a touchstone. Where is it? In the garbage. Go and take it. So he takes it and then he thinks, oh, why do you keep it in the garbage? And then he gives him holy name. But here's a question. The question is, did Sanatana Goswami know about Yukta Vairagya? He could have used the touchstone to get more wealth, use it in building temples and preaching Krishna consciousness. So many things he could have used. Why didn't he use the touchstone for Yukta Vairagya? For Krishna service, why did he keep it in the dustbin? Yes, bro.
Because Sanatana Goswami wanted to give some lessons for us that I read Prabhupada writes somewhere else that for those who are not very advanced in devotional service, he may use that for own sense gratification. But those who are advanced, they can use everything as Yukta Vairagya. That's why that is lesson from Sanatana Goswami.
So Sanatana Goswami, he could definitely use, correct?
But he wanted to give example.
Okay, you wanted to set an example for us. Yes, that's perfect. So what example, what Siddhanta, what you said is perfect. What you said is absolutely correct. I'm just trying to get a little more precise answer. So what is the exact lesson that Sanatana Goswami wanted to teach us?
How the devotional service supersedes everything. Like money is temporary, but devotional service can supersede everything. So one has devotional service, that's the basic thing. He has got everything.
Okay, that's fine, but why the money can't be used in Krishna service? Why the touchstone cannot be used in Krishna service?
It can be used, but it is also an example or a lesson has to be shown that he wants to also compare the two things.
Compare what?
Like money is kept here and there is holy name. In a sense, touchstone is the holy name. So holy name is above everything. Also, the Vaishnava sometimes proves this example to show to the world, like the power of the holy name is the highest.
So why the touchstone and the money cannot be used to spread the holy name?
But as a part of example of Sanatana Goswami, his caliber is concerned, he had to prove or show to the world that by his example that everything is temporary except devotional service.
So yes, so using the money in Krishna service is part of devotional service. That is the principle of Yukta Vairagya. You agree or no?
Higher example, I would say. That's what I understand.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, depending upon the circumstances at that time, this Vairagya was more important to preach. That this sadhu is very Vairagi. So, like Akbar, I heard that he was very much attached to them, Sadhu Goswamis. So that time this was important, so they set this example. So today, big buildings are required for a people crowd to attract. So this is.
Oh, Sanatana Goswami didn't build big building.
So he engaged Akbar and other people.
No, that is okay, but he could have used the wealth also, no?
Then he could not have engaged. These rulers who are.
No, he could engage them also. He could engage the wealth. Everything can be engaged. That's the principle of Yukta Vairagya, isn't it? Everything can be engaged in Krishna service.
You wanted to exemplify complete dependence and surrender on Krishna.
So isn't Yukta Vairagya dependence on Krishna?
Yes, it is. But during time, place, and circumstances, like what would be acceptable to the people? Otherwise, they would say, like how Krishna made Prabhupada, like example, like his wealth did not grew to heights, and then he wanted to exemplify thoroughly like how Prabhupada's surrender because of.
Okay, that's Prabhupada. But what's the example Sanatana Goswami wanted to say? Through this story. Okay, fine. So any of those, you remember? What?
Sanatana Goswami used this because he wanted to explain that the power of devotional service, the power of Mahamantra. If he could have used it.
You are coming to the same point. Who remembers exactly precisely what we had discussed? Okay, Sharad Prabhu.
So before Yukta Vairagya to be practiced, Sanatana Goswami wanted to emphasize that one needs to have sufficient Vairagya enough to be able to then engage all this wealth, everything in Krishna service.
Okay, you're coming close to the point. Okay, let's hear one last one.
So the Sanatana Goswami says that as long as we are not realized.
What? Realize what?
As long as we are not Brahma realized or Bhagavan realized. In that time we should differentiate between matter and spirit.
So
these days he kept that touchstone.
Correct. So Srila Prabhupada explains this whole story in the first canto, 8th chapter, verse number 27 purports. He gives this whole story, and at the end of that, Srila Prabhupada writes, Sanatana Goswami did this just to set an example for us. What he wanted to set an example? That as long as one is not able to perceive matter as spirits, one should always distinguish between matter and spirits. Correct? Okay, so some are doubting my statement. Let's read it as it is. Somebody open 1:8:27.
Unless one is able to see everything as spiritual in relationship with the Supreme Lord, unless one is able to see everything as spiritual in relation with the Supreme Lord, one must always distinguish between the matter, spirit and matter. A spiritual matter.
Read a sentence prior to that.
The touchstone of Sanatana Goswami, which was thrown in the rubbish, was not the property of the Goswami. Otherwise, it would have been kept in such a place, not kept in such a place. This specific example is given for the other neophyte devotees just to convince them.
The
that
example is for
material
neophytes, just to convince them.
The material hankerings and the spiritual advancement go ill together.
And
Unless one is able to see everything as spiritual in relation with the Supreme Lord, one must always distinguish between the spirit and matter.
Yes.
A spiritual matter, a spiritual master like Srila Sanatan Goswami, although personally able to see everything as spiritual, set this example for us only because we have no such
Vision.
spiritual vision.
Yes. Very important. So, therefore, so everyone understood this point? So the point is that unless one can see everything as spiritual, one must always distinguish between spirit and matter. Let's take some example. Laptop. If I see it as spiritual, spiritual means what? Yes, in connection with Krishna. I see it as Krishna's. It is Krishna's energy. If I see it as spiritual, then how will I use it? In Krishna's service. If I don't see it as spiritual, then how will I see it? Material. If I see it as material, what will I use it for? Material sense gratification. That's the point. So, if I'm able to see, or to the degree I'm able to see things in connection to Krishna, to that degree I can use those things in Krishna's service. If I don't have that realization, I cannot use in Krishna's service, because I'll end up using for sense gratification. Everything is related to Krishna. Sarvam khalu idam Brahma. Everything is Brahman, everything is spiritual, everything is Krishna's, everything can be used in Krishna's service. Do I have that vision? To the degree I have that vision, to that degree I can use things in Krishna's service. If I don't have that vision, then according to my realization, use that much only in Krishna's service. So therefore, if one is a neophyte, he doesn't have that realization that this laptop can be used in Krishna's service. He doesn't have the realization. So what should he do? Better not use. Or have some limited access. And so we know these days, with all these modern gadgets, what's happening? Many brahmacharis are getting polluted. It's a fact. And needless to say about others. But why? Because one does not have that spiritual vision. So if one does not have the spiritual vision, then one must have restricted use. Otherwise, one will use it for sense gratification. Therefore, going back to the Nectar of Devotion, chapter 14, Srila Prabhupada writes, the principle of Yukta Vairagya must therefore be practiced under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master. Therefore, the guidance is required, because then the one who is guiding can see how much realization does this person have. And according to that realization, then he allows him to engage matter in Krishna's service. Okay, are these points making some sense? So these are all the deeper aspects of Yukta Vairagya. So, otherwise Yukta Vairagya. Everything used in Krishna's service, no problem, everything used. But then what happens? One gets trapped in the name of Yukta Vairagya. Therefore, the word of caution has been given by our acharyas That's exactly what Srila Prabhupada is writing. Sanatana Goswami had no problem. Sanatana Goswami is using this example only to teach us. Prabhupada is writing that, to teach us, those who don't have the spiritual vision. Alright? So this is the meaning of with the development of the bhakti cults, with the application of positive service to the positive form. See, Prabhupada's statements are so precise, so much of depth of meaning, every statement, every word. With the development of the bhakti cult, that means to the degree one develops in bhakti, with the application of positive service to the positive form, to the degree one is engaging in positive service to the positive form. What is the positive form? The form of the Lord. Or to the degree one is engaging in that devotional service, and to the degree he becomes attached to that positive form, then to that degree he becomes detached from inferior things and he becomes attached to superior things. It's all proportional. Then to the degree the attachment to the positive form is not there, then to that degree he cannot have that vairagya from the inferior things. Okay, let's go back to 4.22.39, where we were discussing about the karmashayam, yatpada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya. So it is said for the jnanis and yogis, very difficult to cut the gratita, the hard knots of karmashayam, very difficult to cut, because they are basically, karmashayam means what? Sense gratification. Gross or subtle. The jnanis and yogis may have desires for subtle sense gratification. So the sense gratificatory desires are compared to the waves of the river. So the jnanis and yogis, very difficult to stop the waves of the river. Now, can the devotee stop the waves of the river?
No.
Can the devotee stop? Then how do the devotees, how they are able to give up the desires for sense gratification? So Srila Prabhupada, in that purport, he explains a beautiful analogy. So he says, yes, the desires for sense gratification are like the waves of the river. They cannot be stopped. But when the river enters into the ocean, then what happens? There are bigger waves. The bigger waves of the ocean subdue the smaller waves of the river. The waves of the river cannot be stopped, but what can happen? They can be subdued by the bigger waves of the ocean. Therefore, on the path of bhakti, one must develop superior desires to serve the Lord. Positive service to the positive form. The more one develops these superior desires to serve the Lord, then automatically the inferior desires are subdued. And that's exactly what Prabhupada writes in that purport. One must develop superior desires. Param drishtva nivartate. One must develop the higher taste. And how the higher taste develops? Now if you go to the verse on higher taste in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the verse? Yes. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Now if you go to that purport, Srila Prabhupada says, when one actually becomes Krishna conscious, then all material, I'm paraphrasing, then all the material things appear to be dead and pale. But what one has to become? Actually Krishna conscious. Prabhupada writes that word there. Actually Krishna conscious. Or, to the degree one becomes Krishna conscious, to that degree the material things will appear to be dead pale. No ras. It's proportional. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada quoted this verse quite often. Yadavadi mama chitta Krishna padarvinde navanava rasa. So, to the degree the chitta, the consciousness is where? Krishna padarvinde. To the degree the consciousness is fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna, then to that, and he is experiencing newer and newer tastes. We were discussing in the morning how to relish Krishna Katha, Krishna consciousness at every moment. Correct? Swadu, swadu, pade, pade. So, to the degree one relishes that, to the degree one becomes Krishna conscious, to that degree one can relish, and to that degree the inferior things become dead pale. Then one is able, when one thinks of sense gratification with the woman, one is able to spit at the tongues. But for that, what one has to do? Chitta Krishna Padaravinde. The chitta, the consciousness has to be fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna. And therefore, that higher taste, as we were discussing in the morning, who gives that higher taste? 4, 30, 20, we were discussing in the morning. Who makes everything ever fresh? The Super Soul. He makes everything ever fresh. He gives the higher taste, and that's exactly what Prabhupada is writing here. It actually happens by the grace of the Almighty. You saw that? It happens by the grace of the Almighty. It is not possible by dry reasoning. So one may reason, one may logically understand higher taste, lower taste, this, that, so many things one may logically understand. But logic works to some degree. But ultimately the higher taste is bestowed by the mercy of the Lord to one who is sincere. That's how one actually develops the real Vairagya. So in conclusion, one who is a pure devotee has all the other good qualities, namely knowledge, detachment, but one who has only knowledge or detachment, like the Jnanis and Yogis, is not necessarily well acquainted with the principles of bhakti. And therefore, Vishwanath Thakur in his commentary on the verse again quotes the well-known verse, Bhakti pareshanubho virakti anyatra cheshat trika ekakalaha prapadyamanasya yathashnatasya tushti pushti kshudapayanubhasam. So, the effects of the practice of bhakti are just like when one eats anughasam, with every morsel one is experiencing tushti, pushti, kshuddapaya, satisfaction, nourishment, cessation of hunger. So similarly, one experiences bhakti, devotion, pareshanubhava, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and virakti, detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously. For one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. Okay? And at the end he says, there's an objection that if one possesses knowledge, one attains liberation. Okay, by Gyan, one attains liberation. In answer to this, the verse says that this knowledge is ahitukam, without motivation for liberation. So that's the other meaning of ahitukam. Ahitukam means this Gyan, this is bhakti Gyan that the devotee gets by devotional service. So there's no motive in this Gyan. This Gyan is not meant for liberation. Ahitukam comes from hetu, meaning cause or purpose, just as one can say he lives for eating. This means he lives with the goal of eating. Thus, in this verse, Jnanam Ahitukam means knowledge without the goal of liberation. Therefore, by practicing bhakti, in which knowledge also manifests without the goal of liberation, the liberation of merging does not take place. Knowledge in this case means knowledge and experience of the Lord's form, qualities, and sweetness. Okay, read this.
Renunciation. Try to understand what is renunciation. Just like we, the members of the Krishna society, we have renounced all material activities. That's all. That is renouncement. Our activities are surrounding only about Krishna. We do not do anything except Krishna business. We are publishing magazine, that is Krishna. We are publishing books, that is Krishna. We are going to the press, that is for Krishna. We are going to the market, that is for Krishna. We are cooking, that is for Krishna. We are living only for Krishna. We are dancing for Krishna. We are chanting for Krishna. So we have renounced. The same things are there in the material life, publishing book or going to the press, typing or microphone or dancing, chanting, these are. But they are not for Krishna. That is for sense gratification. Only for working Krishna, for the satisfaction of Krishna, that is called Vairagya. And to attain this Vairagya, renouncement, one requires sufficient knowledge. That is called Jnana. So this knowledge and renouncement, two things required in human life.
Okay, fine. So everything for Krishna, that is real Vairagya. Everything is done for Krishna. Okay, Tesham Evanukampartam. That's how one gets knowledge on the practice of bhakti. Okay, any clarifications? Yes, Nimanit.
One was that as you're mentioning it, by bhakti, ignorance is destroyed. So what actually in bhakti actually makes that happen? Because sometimes somebody may be practicing chanting for many years and still he may be experiencing very gross base material desire or such dealings. So then,
so you can.
So what actually in bhakti removes this ignorance?
So you're asking who removes the ignorance?
No, what element of bhakti, when the devotee is practicing bhakti, okay, let us say he starts listening some classes and gradually in the classes he understands. Or he observes some great exalted Vaishnavas in action, dealing with, material world and Krishna. Or his own super soul removes that Dami Udyogantam Jnanadipena Bhashuta, and then he just, comes to understanding, oh, actually this is right. So what element actually makes that happen, that?
Krishna Surya Sammaya Hai Mandakar Jaha Krishna Taha Nahi Mayara Adhikar. Krishna, the son of Krishna. So, just like here, we just read this. What is bhakti all about? Prabhupada is very practically down to earth telling us, what is bhakti all about? Only working for Krishna, for the satisfaction of Krishna, that is Vairagya. This is bhakti. Bhakti means satisfaction of Krishna. That's all. As simple as that. To the degree we work for Krishna's satisfaction, and when Krishna is satisfied, the Son of Krishna rises within the hearts. Where can darkness remain? That is what has to happen. The Son of Krishna has to rise. Actually, in the commentary to this verse, Tesham Evanukampartam, by Baldev Vidyabhushan, he very beautifully describes. Tesham Evanukampartam, aham ajnana tama nashyami atma bhavasto, atma. So, he compares the atma to a lotus. So, within this lotus, what happens is Krishna enters like the bee. Because why Krishna enters the lotus of the heart of the devotee? because he's very pleased with the devotion. Then Krishna enters. And then Krishna manifests his beautiful qualities, his beautiful form. And when Krishna manifests his beautiful form in the heart of the devotee, then what is going to happen to all other attractions of this world? Just like Dhanudas was attracted to the lady, Sripad Ramacharya showed him the beautiful lotus-like eyes of Lord Ranganath. And when Sripad Ramacharya personally showed Jnana Deepena Bhaswata, he actually showed the Deepa. He showed with the lamp, he showed the beautiful eyes of Lord Ranganath. He was not just showing deity, he was actually showing the Lord's full realization. And when he saw that, finished. So it all depends on how much Krishna is pleased to reveal himself within the heart of the devotee. And to the degree Krishna is pleased by this attitude. What attitude? Only for the satisfaction of Krishna. So when one is in that consciousness, I am simply working for the satisfaction of Krishna. That's Krishna consciousness. That is bhakti. Krishna is pleased with that consciousness. And then when Krishna is pleased, he reveals himself. Then everything else is finished. That's how the Agyan goes up.
Thank you, Willie. So then thought comes that what will affect or what will inspire a person to start working selflessly? Because that is what is the selflessly working for Krishna.
Correct.
That is devotion.
Correct.
That is what Krishna accepts as devotion.
Correct.
That pleases him.
Correct.
So when or how that person, any devotee becomes inspired to work selflessly for Krishna's pleasure?
So first of all, one has to definitely understand the basic philosophy that what is my goal? What is my constitutional position? And my goal in life is what? To come back to that constitutional position. That is a natural position. Otherwise it's a diseased condition. So ultimately, what are we all looking for? What are we all looking for?
Happiness.
Happiness. How can one be happy? By coming out of the diseased condition. Correct? Diseased condition, one cannot be happy. One has to come out of the diseased condition. And what is the process to come out of the diseased condition? Devotional service. That's the medicine. So, to the degree one is, so it's a process, it's a gradual process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. But at least one must be working in that direction. Doing everything for the pleasure of Krishna and not for my pleasure. One has to work in that direction. So, in the initial stages, usually there's a mix. Something for Krishna, something for me. Now that proportion of something for Krishna and something for me, the proportion of Krishna has to increase and me has to reduce. And so to the degree one is working hard in that direction, it requires determination. Determination is Prabhupada has written this in his purports in the Bhagavad Gita. One wants to come to the mode of goodness. This is mode of goodness. Of course, we want to come to the transcendental platform, but at least mode of goodness. Mode of goodness means doing it as duty. That is the first step, duty. That means duty means what? Whether I like it or I don't like it, I still do it. That is duty. I don't feel like coming for Mangalarti. Why? Mind is saying, forget it. But no, I think it is my duty. So that I like it or I don't like it. As a duty, I go. So that is mode of goodness. And Prabhupada writes, you can see, 14th chapter, verse number 10 purport. Prabhupada says, practice by determination. That is what is required. So if one does that, then at least one comes to the mode of goodness. Then bhakti is one step higher. Then bhakti means I come to Mangalarti. For what? Satisfaction of Krishna. That is bhakti. That's one step higher. But then that's the whole process. So first of all, at least mode of goodness. Then one can transcend that.
So, thank you, Ruji. So, as I understand, so the process, you mentioned as person develops knowledge and also renders service.
And gets purified.
Gets purified by these two things. So, basically, Sambandha Gyan and exchanges.
Abhidheya.
And exchanges with Dadadivriti Granadi with the devotees and Sambandha Gyan. Am I making sense, please?
Yes.
Understanding correctly?
Yes, correct. Yes, so one has to practice the process under guidance, and one must have the sincerity, the determination. That's how one can progress. And then as one progresses, then one develops more and more realization of Krishna. The degree one develops more realization of Krishna, then all these material things make no sense.
One small more question was, in between you were speaking about Karmashayam. So then you once said this, that Karmashayam also means ego. The person is not ready to give up ego, and that's why the whole problem they have, all of this. And devotees also, only when they start giving up their ego, then only the actually progress happens. So Karmashayam is fruitive desires. How we equate it to ego, Prabhuji?
Yes, so Karmashayam means what? The desire, the asha, the desire for fruitive results. So why one has a desire for fruitive results?
Because he has the ego that
I am the doer. I have worked hard. People say, I have worked hard. So who should enjoy the money? I, of course. So the moment one understands 3.27
Prakriti
kriyamani gune karmani sarvash ahankara vimodatma karta aham iti manyate. One understands 5 factors for action. What is the final one? Deva. I may think I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll show to the world what I can do. Now, one moment Krishna does something, all ability finished. I may think, I'm giving such a beautiful class, I can speak so wonderfully, I can do this, I can do that. Vocal cords paralyzed. One word will come out? No. So what is my greatness? So where is the doership mentality? Useless. So then one understands, I'm not the doer. I'm simply an insignificant instrument. That's all. When one understands that, then there's no doership. Then one understands, I'm simply a puppet in the hands of Krishna. That's all. That's what Srila Prabhupada prayed. Then when one realizes that I'm simply a puppet in Krishna's hands, no more ego. I'm not the doer, I'm puppet. Can a puppet have any ego? Can a puppet have an ego? Why? The puppet knows 100% that who is moving him? The puppeteer is 100% in control. So that's the realization we need to get. I'm simply a puppet in Krishna's hands. Make me dance. That's all. Then Krishna can, as he desires, he will make sense. Thank you.
Prabhupada uses this word Almighty. I always used to think why in first canto I think more.
Something, Almighty. Allah means Almighty. So one can chant Allah, but how much one has that realization? Anything else?
Here in the second para, only for
called Vairagya. And to attain this Vairagya, one requires sufficient knowledge. So that is what like the basic philosophy or how jnana.
Yes, so initially some gyan is there, but then as one practices, the gyan has to turn into vijnana. Okay. So then when one has vijnana, then one has the realization. Then the greater the realization, then the greater the vairagya. So it's not referring simply to theoretical knowledge. The theoretical knowledge cannot give vairagya. The theoretical knowledge, that's what Prabhupada is writing in the purport. What? This is not possible by dry reasoning. One cannot get the vairagya by dry reasoning. So, simply by some theoretical knowledge, that is dry reasoning. It is not possible. Okay, with that initial knowledge, which one gets from devotees, so it is bhakti jnana. But then with that one practices, and then one gets realization, then one pleases the Lord. Then when one pleases the Lord, the real vairagya develops. That is why he says, it all happens by the grace of the Almighty. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, one last one.
Probably this is related to the point you started with this session, that bhakti comes from the devotees. So I heard that when tsunami was there, the people who were living on the banks, those who were not in the list of getting hit by tsunami, their karma was not there, they were somehow driven away from the bank for some purpose, and they were saved. So in Jagannath Rath Yatra, those who are not pious enough, somehow they will not be able to make it to Rath Yatra. Is it not possible, Prabhuji? I mean, how we can determine whether this is because devotees are there, they are getting the opportunity. We can also see that it is in their karma because they have done accumulated enough piety, that is why they are there. Otherwise, for some purpose, they must have driven away from the path of that Jagannath Rath Yatra, route of the Rath Yatra.
So yes, so everything is possible. So there are so many factors coming into play. There is karma, there is mansukruti, there is sinful activity. So many factors are coming into play. How Krishna adjusts all this is totally inconceivable. It's not possible for us to understand how this karma works and how all these things work. Our discussion was not all this. Our discussion was how does one get bhakti? That's all. How does one begin bhakti? That was our discussion. Bhakti comes from bhakta. That was the discussion. Now, why one attended the Rath Yatra, all those things are too complicated for us to comprehend. What's happening exactly in the life of a person and how karma is working and so many factors are working. It's very difficult to determine. Karma, very difficult. Krishna himself tells in the Bhagavad Gita. Yes, very complicated. Can't determine. Our discussion was different. How does one begin? Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samved Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. So please, attendance, respond to your attendance please. This part of devotional service.